All right, I wasn't planning on doing this today, but I just got this question from a viewer on my recent Cyclozard video, pretty much asking why offensive Pokemon are banned so frequently and so quickly when long-standing defensive threats like Toxapex and interesting choice from the viewer here, Landorus Therian, do not. So I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but it's a new generation with new players incoming and frankly, more casual players returning. Plus, there's been a lot of really nasty discourse going on with Fluttermane and Houndstone getting banned yesterday, so let's get this going. First things first, the most classic accusation. Well, Smogon hates offense and loves stall, so of course they're gonna insta-ban anything offensive. This one is so obviously stupid, but it still gets my goat because it's fundamentally so dumb from top to bottom. First of all, who do you think Smogon is? Some shadowy monolith organization that bans and tiers Pokemon indiscriminately? Each tier is made up of a bunch of experts who are just volunteering their time and doing what they think is right for each metagame. It's not some shadowy, organization like a Mission Impossible banning your favorite Pokemon. And if we're talking specifically about the OU Council here, are we now saying that Finchinator is trying to ban offense and promote stall? Like, for real? Finchinator. Let's take a look at the last 3 tournaments games that this guy's played. All right, first up, we got this Gen 4 PU game, which is a weird example because I know nothing about this tier, but I mean, is this team even offensive? This is a terrible example. I shouldn't have brought it up. But we see H.O. Glalie doesn't say so much as Gen 4. Looks like a Specs Golduck. More rocks on you. Life Forward Merc. I don't know. That's a terrible example. Shouldn't have even brought it up. But again, last 3 games played, we got some Gen 6 OU, where admittedly it's not as hyper offensive as his opponent's team, which is a pure and through hyper offense. But still, even the most pessimistic player couldn't call this anything worse than balance. I would call it a bulky offense with all these mons. Like boom, 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 3 frail offensive mons and T-Tars no recovery and yada yada, so not offensive. And then Gen 8 OU, we played this game recently, and he's playing against stall with this extremely, I don't know if I go so far as to call it hyper offense, but extremely offensive team of his own. I don't get, this guy is not a lover of stall. This guy was a man who was born in the fires of Gen 5 OU offense. That tier is so, compared to all of the OUs throughout time, Gen 5 has got to be one of the worst, and that's where he kind of made his name in. I do not see this idea that he's this stall lover. I mean, look, I can't speak for the OU Council as I'm just, an unassuming, humble monotype YouTuber. But the fact is, I'm pretty sure they have no intention of making any one playstyle better or worse. At absolute most, you can maybe argue they're trying to make sure all different playstyles remain viable and there's a balance between all of them. But I wouldn't even suggest that based on what I'm seeing so far and from what I can tell. The only one thing they do care about is making sure that you're not forced to run one of the same few Pokemon on every team. And that's what it means when we call a Pokemon like Fluttermane or Houndstone, or even if we go back to a previous generation, Dracovish or Urshifu Dark, when we call these Pokemon over-centralizing, it means that they're so strong, they're so irresistible, that you're forced to do one of 3 things, which is you have one of a few possible Pokemon on your team that can counter them. You play absolute balls to the wall offense that can KO their 6 before they can KO your 6. Or 3, you lose. I'm sorry, that's it. Those are the 3 options if you allow those Pokemon to run rampant. Look at Dracovish last generation, which is somehow still a controversial topic in the scene. I don't understand it. In this meta, you were forced to run every game one of Toxapex, Ferrothorn, or Seismitoad. Every game. I'm sorry, you had to. If you didn't, he would sweep you, even if you had a faster Pokemon like Dragapult. And so again, you were forced to run one of those 3 Pokemon every single game. And honestly, probably a Dracovish on your own, where your team was not viable. So that means in terms of team building, you are now only team building from 4 slots. It's I have to have these 2, a Dracovish counter and a Dracovish. And now where do I go from here? And I think 90% of us would agree that being forced to run one of a few Pokemon is lame. I mean, if we were to flip that example from offense to defense, and if there's only 3 Pokemon in a metagame that countered Toxapex and were able to knock it out, and you were forced to run a Choice Specs Tapu Lele every game, people would lose their minds. There would be rioting in the streets, and it would get very quickly banned, I assure you. But again, even if you think it's okay to be forced to run, to have these Pokemon that only have a few counters, I think it's okay to have them in a metagame. That can also get out of hand really quickly, because for example, if we once again look at Sword and Shield overuse from last generation, we'll look at the 4 most controversial bans, which were Dracovish, Urshifu Dark, Cinderace, and Spectrier, right? If none of them are banned, like some of you want, you would be forced to run each of their individual counters. So that means every team would essentially be forced to run a Toxapex for Dracovish, a Clefable for Urshifu, a Hippowdon for Cinderace, and Blissey for Spectrier. So again, Toxapex, Clefable, Hippowdon, and Blissey being forced to run that on every team. Is this what you want? And you think this is the OU Council trying to buff stall by banning these Pokemon? This is what you think? This is what you think's happening? I'm sorry. But again, I accept that's probably not too relevant because I think most casuals who are entering or re-entering the scene with Scarlet Violet are much more so in the second camp, which is let's deal with these broken Pokemon by running hyper offense all day, every day. I think this is what they would argue. So let's deal with this offense with even more offense. And I'm going to ignore the problem this also creates of forcing you to run the broken Pokemon on every team to stay competitive. So that means, you know, I'm going to ignore the whole different topic of now every team is forced to run like Palafin, Poundstone, and whatever like the 6 most broken end up being. Because again, I don't love the optics of like, okay, time to start team building. I gotta have Palafin. Who are his 5 cronies going to be this match? Like, I don't love that, but again, I'm not going to dwell on it too long. But yes, on the topic of hyper offense to counter broken offensive Pokemon, I mean, the more I think about the suggestion, the more I question, do we really want every single Pokemon game to be hyper offensive? Like, no bulky offense, no balance, no weather teams, no defensive cores. Just trotting out a bunch of hyper offense Pokemon. You guess right, not 50-50, and that kind of wins you the whole game. Is that really all we want from our metagame? That's it, just that very narrow scope of being viable. No double switching or no hazard control, no long-term game planning and looking to find the cracks in your opponent's armor, no picking up on your opponent's tendencies and exploiting them. Like, none of these things that I find so rewarding and engaging about a strategic game like Pokemon, none of that. Because I don't know, hyper offense mirror matches can be fun every now and then. I've played my fair share, but every single match, I'm not sure if this is a hot take or not, but it feels like those matches are almost more like rock, paper, scissors sometimes, where you guess right once and you sweep from there, more than it feels like a strategy game, honestly. That's why, to be honest, I haven't been playing a lot of these laddering videos so far, playing the new metagame. I'll get around to it, I promise. But because you know, it's funny, it's hilarious to see all this broken stuff go crazy and learn about these exciting new sets. I'm with you all on that. But the non-stop hyper offensive mirrors doesn't really promote the qualities that make me love competitive Pokemon so much. It's no secret to anyone that hyper offense attracts newcomers because it narrows the scope of things you have to worry about. I think that's kind of common knowledge because you have a dedicated lead matchup that you start every game with. You have a Scarfer who you send into revenge kill or pivot every time there's a death. You have an eject button Hippowdon in this specific meta who comes in before Houndstone every time so that it can sweep. I mean, it's very streamlined. It's very straightforward. You don't have to think very much. You don't have to need to isolate matchups because you're just going to send in your 2 big sit-up sweepers every game, and win or lose, that decides it, and you're just like, okay, on to the next. And as a result, it's the most welcoming playstyle for newcomers, which I love. I enjoy it. You know, there's always a place for hyper offense. You know, slightly off topic, I love, you know, hyper offense versus balance game. That's very rewarding too, because again, the hyper offense player really has to look at their team and go, okay, you know, the crux point here is my opponent's Toxapex on their balance team. I really need to keep my Tapu Koko alive, so that's rewarding. But the hyper offense versus hyper offense is just, I don't know. Speaking for Nathan, I don't like it being everything. Again, like, to be clear, what I'm talking about, I'm not saying hyper offense versus hyper offense is bad. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it being all there is to Gen 9 OU, that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask. Again, you know, I love bulky offense. If that was all there was, you know, Gen 9, you know, bulky offense mirrors every game, all game, that's a tall order. And of course, it goes without saying that if it was stall versus stall, people would again be pulling out their hair. But you know what? That's a lot of talking from me when I haven't even addressed the root question that started this video. Why do offensive Pokemon get banned so quickly and defensive ones don't? Toxapex alone shuts down so many offensive threats. Why did it not get banned in Gen 8 OU for over-centralization? Explain that. Put simply, it's not as good. Last generation Dracovish was a far, far more centralizing Pokemon than Toxapex was. Dracovish forced one of 3 counter Pokemon onto your team, like I broke down before. While Toxapex, I mean, shit, I guarantee right now, off the top of my head, I can think of 10 Pokemon that beat Toxapex easily. Zeraora, Zapdos, Landorus, Garchomp, Rillaboom, the Tapus, so Tapu Lele, Tapu Fini, Tapu Koko. Heatran could beat it, but if you want to call that a defensive answer, that's fine. I'll beat it offensively, but Volcanion and Magnezone. That's 10 right there, off the top of my head. And if you go into defensive Pokemon, you can go into things like Clefable, Blissey, Heatran again, Slowbro, Slowking, And that's also not talking about things that are specialized to beat Toxapex, like a trick Blacephalon or a substitute taunt Magnezone, not Magnezone, Corviknight, all kinds of things. Thunder Punch Urshifu with choice band. Like there's all kinds of specific things that can beat Toxapex. So right there, I guarantee I listed half of the metagame. Whereas again, you're not forced to run. You're not looking at your team building going, oh my God, I gotta have the token Toxapex counter on this team. You have to account for it. That's what team building is. You have to account for metagame threats, and Toxapex is a huge threat. It's very good, but it's not like I have to run Specs Lele. Damn, there's tons of answers. And that's just an overused. It's not even the same ballpark. And I think the original comment that spawned this video named Landorus as a defensive threat. And again, I'm not trying to just shit on that person. It's an honest question. But Landorus, I mean, I'm not going to do the same running through the list, but once again, I guarantee half the metagame can beat it. Pretty much any offensive special sweeper could beat, or wall breaker can beat Landorus Darien. These are not over-centralizing threats. They're very good. There's a difference between very good and centralizing, but they're certainly not centralizing. They just happen to be, Toxapex and Landorus just happen to be defensive Pokemon. So anytime anybody's Lucario gets walled by one of these guys, they lose their mind and they swear it's a tier-loving stall. It's not the fact that I'm using a Pokemon that belongs and rarely used. So I don't know. I'm sorry if I sound bitter. You guys know that I hate making mean-spirited videos like this, but I've seen at least 24 tweets and YouTube comments to the effect of, the full sprites of these Pokemon aren't even out yet, and Smogon has already banned my favorite Pokemon. This is so unfair. And like, well, okay, let's break down that sentiment specifically into 3 parts, right? One, in terms of how quickly it happened, the ban. I'm sorry, but how much evidence do you possibly need that these Pokemon are broken? I mean, like, Last Respects in particular, like what, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, like what do you need to see to know this move is outrageous? I'm sorry, like it's insane and it didn't belong in the tier. Anybody can tell that. 2, I think I need a sign that says this or something, but the Pokemon isn't getting, like, Houndstone is not getting banned from the servers. It's just getting banned from overused. If you love Houndstone so freaking much, just play it in Ubers. I've seen this a million. Am I taking crazy pills? Just play it in Ubers. Play it in Anything Goes. It's just not allowed in overuse. People don't lose their minds because, oh my God, Dragonite is my favorite Pokemon. I can't play it in underused. That's horse, like, what are you talking about? You can still play an overuse. What do you mean? This is the same thing here. Honestly, the fact that so many people cry over a Pokemon getting banned and won't even entertain the idea of playing them in Ubers really just tells me that it was never about the Pokemon, that they're like, again, that they profess to love so much. It's just about them being completely overpowered in the tier and they miss their easy wins. Honestly, like it's the hard truth, but here's the hard pill to swallow here. Because honestly, like, again, coming from the fighting game community, people put up way less of a fuss when an actual character gets banned that people main and put hundreds of hours into. And imagine, like, people are acting the same out here when Houndstone got banned, when all they do is type good luck, have fun, and click Last Respect 6 times. Like, what is the discrepancy? Also, if you think these Pokemon are getting banned too fast or unjustly, then just wait for a retest. Pokemon get unbanned from Ubers all the time, and after the dust has settled and the picture of the metagame has stabilized, if it's ultimately fit for the tier, then there's a good chance it's going to find its way back. I mean, it's not gone for good. But, and again, if you don't want any restrictions on what Pokemon you can or can't play in the tier, again, go play Anything Goes. Go play the Scarlet and Violet ladder. Like, again, I would love to see these people who are so frustrated by bans play a truly unrestricted ladder and see how they do. Because those metagames are very singular and very unique for a reason, because there's no restriction, and frankly, Pokemon is not a competitive game. Like, this is why Smogon and Shonen exist in the first place. We as a community have decided to do something to make it fun and viable and give creativity and allow myself to play a game where I don't need a Palafin and a dedicated Flutter main counter, where I can just, like, play who I think is fun and, like, build a team and reward, like, creative team building. That's where we want to end this metagame, where, I'm not gonna use the word entitlement. I hate when any rant involves the word entitlement. But it feels like we just dumped all these Pokemon to see, like, who fits and who's not. This was always gonna happen. So Pokemon were gonna be quick banned. Some were gonna hit the fan. It was gonna be crazy. But we're doing this mass exodus so we can create, as soon as possible, a fun metagame where you can build and be creative and respond to threats, and not just play a game and be like, well, they sent out the Last Respects, time for my 6-0 loss. So I don't know. I think I've yelled probably enough for now. To be clear, I don't say all this to shit on newcomers again. They don't know any better. I wanted this channel to be a place that, like, rewards inquisitive questions of the sort. It's a fair question that deserves to be asked. But I just find like the harassment of the OU mods and like the general dismissive attitude of, oh, you must hate offense. So it's so grating, you know? It's just a bunch of people who are like, or they're Dunning-Kruger pilled, spouting about stuff they don't know about on Twitter. Or like, you know, yesterday I saw this comment saying like, oh, if terrestrialization gets banned, then I'm quitting Showdown for this generation. Like, okay, and? Bro, your ass probably played Showdown like barely in the first place. Oh no, what will we do without XX Dark Destroyer XX and his 3 games of overuse played and his 60 games of random played? What a devastating loss. What are we gonna do about that? I don't know. Maybe this is just me getting butthurt because I'm seeing Twitter replies and that's the worst thing to do because of all those Twitter gremlins, but I don't know. I just wanted to clear the air for my own sanity because I'm sure it's only gonna get worse from here out. These were just the 2 first bans, and obviously due to the speed of them, the most egregious. You know, I do think, you know, I put up my CycleStart video yesterday and that was a hot take. You know, Blunder and Joey and CTC put out a video, I think like 2 hours before mine. They said, you know, it's aight. And so like there's gonna be discrepancies, there's gonna be debate. You know, I think when all is said and done, you know, a year from now, I'd be surprised if CycleStart is still in the metagame. But maybe it's just because it takes advantage of the crazy meta the way it is right now. Only time will tell. Maybe it does get banned, and it was only because it takes advantage of these crazy Pokemon that are active right now, and maybe it gets retested. That's okay. That's all right. You know, we're all human here. It's going to be a community vote if it does happen. It's not going to be just the OU council, and it's not going to be just shadowy Smogon indiscriminately branding things. That's all right. So I guess I just need people to calm down. I need myself to calm down. I'm all riled up here with this topic. Everyone just take a deep breath. It's going to be good. Please leave Finch alone. Poor guy's on Twitter getting smoked from what I can tell. But yeah, it's going to get worse, I bet. That's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed, or I hope this helped. And if not, you know, don't yell at me too much. Thanks for watching.